Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going out on the ice with Joel Nelson, and he's going to share a few tough bite panfish tips that'll help you catch more fish this winter. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
You know, one of the hardest parts of a big bluegill bite and sticking with it and trying to catch more fish is setting up your rod hand in a way that's going to allow you to fish really technically. And I'm not a fan of the pistol grip. I know some people are. That's a big part of how they do things. I love carrying a finger up on the blank, but more often than not, when I'm fishing big bluegills, that rod is locked to my right knee or thigh because I just have way more precision when I'm able to keep that rod here and just dance the tip of it. I kind of liken it to being out shooting a rifle. If I'm fishing like this, I'm freehanding it, and I'm having a hard time holding my arm perfectly still and perfectly stable to be able to precision, oh, there's a fish, to be able to precision bite. But when I've locked in, when I can keep that rod tight, oh, there's a nice little pumpkin seed. But when I can keep that rod tight to my thigh, I've got a way better chance of locking down and fishing really technically. When I say technically, I mean tiny jig strokes, just shaking the bait. We're not talking about even jigging it. We're talking about literally just twitching it in place. So I feel like I've got a way better chance of doing that when the rod's right here. I turn the reel to the side, so keep a finger up on that blank and just ever so slightly rock it along.
Along those same lines, Joel's next tough bite panfish tip is going to be about understanding how the fish like to approach your bait and bite it, and taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you.
There you go. Whew. It's nerve-wracking setting the hook on some of these big gills because, oh, that's a nice one. Wow. Because you never really get a lot of second chances with the better fish. It's so common to have a lot of the smaller fish come back and bite after bite and mess around with you, but more quality fish like this quite often don't give you second chances, so you really need to make your hook sets count. And when I say that, I mean two specific things. First and foremost, big gills quite often will come in and eat the bait just to taste it. And they'll stop behind that hook bend or the hook gap, and then eventually they double clutch it, right? They bite it and then they bite it again. Having the patience to either be able to feel that double clasp or see it in an underwater camera and not set the hook till then, first and foremost, that's paramount. But secondly, you need to make sure that when you actually swing, you don't swing and miss. When you do set the hook, a slow lift is quite often better than a fast rip, because big bluegills, they're a schooling species, and especially when you got a good group of them down there, if you swing and miss and you rip that bait out of there, they all scatter, and you really have to start over from scratch, and it takes minutes for them to come back and resettle. So when you're on a school like this, it's a tough bite, it really pays to do kind of a slow lift, and then as the rod loads up, then you can speed up into the hook set, but only when you know you have them is when to set the hook. So I think if you use these tips, you're gonna catch a whole lot more big bluegills, especially when the bite is tough.
Like Joel mentioned, one of the biggest keys to having success when the bite is tough is taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you, but it also means doing everything that you can to maximize the amount of opportunities that you actually end up getting, and that's what Joel's next tip is all about.
Here we go. Boy, you know, when it comes to tough bite fishing, I don't think there's ever been more fish caught than with simple persistence. That fish had been on my screen for a long time. And when it comes to big bluegills, part of the game is literally just staying in the water. And if you don't have the patience and kind of the mental fortitude to stick with it and just stay jigging, don't take a break. Don't use every dead period to go to the bathroom, grab a snack, wander around the ice, look on your phone. If you don't have that stick-to-itiveness to stay with these fish, so often you're just not gonna have that successful of the day when the bite is tough. Very often it comes down to just these quick little 10-second flurries where fish will come in, they'll look real quick, and you're either paying attention or you weren't, and if you're not gonna get fish. So if you don't have simple patience and that stick-to-itiveness, you're not gonna get fish when the bite is tough.
Next, Joel is going to touch on some of the advantages that you actually have when you're using plastics chasing panfish when the bite is tough.
Got one. You know, when you're on tough bite panfish, there's a couple different tips I can give you to kind of help you hone in, and maybe one of them is fishing with plastics. When you have to sort, that's a big fish. When you have to sort through lots of little fish to be able to get the nicer fish like this, baits like the tungsten pre-rigged mini smelt can make a big difference, because you know, there's a lot of fish down there. There's no doubt about it. We've got them all over the screen. But quality fish like this one, are the only ones we really want to catch amongst all that mess. So if you're trying to target specifically big ones, it would only make sense to challenge them into eating something that's a little bit bigger. The cool part is, though, is that those bigger fish will still eat a bait like this, because that mini smelt tail flicks, right? You can impart so much action just by barely hovering, just by slightly twitching. I'm not talking about even jigging strokes. I'm talking about the lightest of twitches can impart so much action to a bait like this. Fishing plastics to help you sort is a great tip when the bite gets tough.
Last up, Joel is gonna share probably my favorite tough bite panfish tip.
Ooh. Well, that's a natural segue into my next tip, which is all about the underwater camera. You know, when they first came out, underwater cameras, everybody gave them credit as more of a toy than a tool. And when you're talking about underwater cameras, yeah, they entertain you. You see fish down there. It's fun for kids. It's fun for the whole family. But on a bite like this, where the bluegills are really tough to get and they're not cooperating very well, a camera is absolutely essential to being able to catch more fish. And not just catch more fish from a see it and watch when they eat, although that is really important to watch them actually take the bait up past the hook bend. That's only the first part of it. The second part of it is that you're learning as you're going. You're learning the cadence it takes. You're watching what triggers the bite, what gets them excited, what makes them want to eat in the first place. So we're talking underwater camera, we're talking about watching them eat the bait, but also learning the secrets to unlocking more bites in the future. And that, I tell you what, nothing like an underwater camera can really help unlock those secrets out there on ice. So I always fish on hard bites with an underwater camera when I have the clarity to do so.
One of the great parts about panfish is they tend to be a little bit easier to catch than some of those big predator fish. But as we approach midwinter, as the temperatures start to cool off and fish get more lethargic, even panfish can get tough. And hopefully this video had a few tips that'll help you catch a few more fish when that bite is a little bit more difficult. And if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, because we have a lot more awesome content coming this winter. And until then, we will see you in the next one.